Hello everyone, Magdalena here, Wolf of Coins. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm very excited for this topic. If you are interested in Slavic initiation rites that we can see in fairy tales, I highly recommend viewing my previous video on this topic. I will link it down below, about the Iron Wolf tale. Also, this video, I know it will be long, so I don't want to repeat myself. I sketch out like the whole idea of finding initiation rites in the fairy tales there. So yeah, please start there if you're interested. And today I wanted to focus on specifically on female initiation rites, and I will base it mostly on two stories, which one of them is Vasylissa the Beautiful, or the Wise, and the other is of Silver Saucer and the Juicy Apple. And well, I will mention other stories too, but if I did talk about them in lengths, this video would never end. So okay, I will try to be, to the point. I will try to sketch out Slavic female initiation rites. As I've said previously, there probably used to be multiple rites of passage in a person's life. On important occasions such as coming of age, getting married, being accepted into a fraternity, for example, blacksmiths and such. With time they started fading away because the society changed, the culture changed. But in tales they got very often merged with wedding stories. So like trials before getting married, there were like rituals. Before you got married, you had to go through some kind of ritual. And but we still have tales preserved that don't mention getting married at all. And I know it's difficult to separate these. I will try. Of course, I can be wrong. This is my interpretation and what I am trying to do here. If you see it differently, please share it, because everything's possible and I love seeing things from different angles. So in some of the tales, the part with a partner, so the prince or the princess, the future wife or husband, it seems to be added later, or the partner is just mentioned in passing. So like usually like there's this whole story, and at the end, oh, and by the way, she got married or he got married then. The most important part is about the trials that the hero or the heroine has to go through. And usually the the construction of all initiations is based on the trials plus dying plus being reborn. And so as I said, today we'll be focusing on female initiation rites. There are fabulous male initiation tales too, though, and maybe I'll talk about them later. Like my favorite one, Polish fairy tale, Szklana Góra, which means glass mountain. I love it. Also I'm thinking about creating a third video in the series about wedding rites, because there is a lot of material in the fairy tales as well, and I think it would be interesting to see. And there are a lot of stories, like both for men and for women. Maybe I could put this together because it's like a common theme. But anyway, As I said, I will be talking mostly about the Vasylissa tale, which it's great because you can. First of all, it's a great story, but you can also read it in English in Clarissa Pinkola Estes's The Women Who Run with the Wolves. There's her version of it, a beautiful one, so you can easily read it there in detail. And the other one will be also a Russian, mostly we know Vasylissa from Russian sources, but it might be, more from other regions as well. And the other one is also, as I said, I have it from Russian Fairytales book. It's about the silver saucer and the juicy apple, where the main character is called Masha. So, in short, if you don't know the story about Vasylissa, her evil stepmother and her evil stepsister sent her to a terrifying Baba Yaga's hut. Here we have Baba Yaga, here we have her hut. So in Russian stories, it's a hut on chicken feet, and it can turn. In Polish version, for some reason, we have only one foot. And by the way, this is my work in progress on Baba Yaga's card for my oracle. So yeah, that's her. Pretty terrifying. So they sent her there. In the middle of the Baba Yaga lives in the middle of the wildest forest. She's a scary old woman who can do magic, and Vasylissa is supposed to bring back fire because fire in their house got extinguished, and she has to go there and bring it back home. She has to get the fire from Baba Yaga. She has to endure trials and serve her at the hut. She's constantly being reminded that if she fails, Baba Yaga will eat her. In her impossible tasks, she is assisted by a doll that her mother gave her before she died. And about this doll and this whole stuff, I could do a separate video, but anyway, we have a little dolly here. So I won't be talking too much about it. Sorry for that noise. I'll turn it off. Okay, so she has this doll, and the doll assists her in her very difficult tasks. These tasks remind us also the story of Amor and Psyche, where Psyche has to prove to Aphrodite, mother of Amor, or Eros actually, that she's worthy, and so she gives her like very difficult tasks. And yeah. Then, after finishing her tasks, she's given a skull with burning embers inside. So here you see it. But if you're curious, these are just cards that I printed for myself on Make Playing Cards from various. Yeah, this is Gustav Moreau. This is Ivan Bilibin. These are just for my use. So yeah, she gets the skull on a stick. Inside there are burning embers, and this is Baba Yaga's hut with the skulls around it. I had another. Oh no, I lost my bookmarker. Yeah, there is another version here. And also I have a whole video on Baba Yaga. It's a fascinating topic. So on my Slavic pagan stuff playlist you can find a video I made about her, I think a year ago. So what I would add to that video would be about her name, because I talk a lot about like the origins of Baba Yaga's name. So as I say there, in short, Baba means woman, or old woman in this case, and Yaga might have different, like various meanings, but I think it's it just comes from the word meaning forest, because we also have jagoda, which is a berry. It's a fruit of the forest, jagoda, and we have Yaga. I think she's so deeply connected with the forest. I hope you don't hear my son screaming. Anyway, so I would say that we may also see the meaning of her name as the forest woman, lady of the woods. Okay. Yeah, I get sidetracked all the time. So she takes the skull back home, and where the fire from the skull burns her evil sisters and stepmother, but Vasylisa herself is unscathed. And later her beauty and accomplishments make the Tsar or the king take her as his wife. But as I said, it's just like an addition. It seems like an addition to the story. Losing my bookmarks. Anyway, this is the first one. Go to the second story about the silver saucer and the juicy apple. We have this lovely apple tree here. And so Masha has two older sisters who are lazy. She herself is a very hard-working girl. In the house, in the orchard, in the field. Their father goes to the market and asks his daughters what presents they would like him to buy for them. Older girls ask for pretty fabrics so that they can make new clothes for themselves, and Masha asks for a silver saucer and a juicy apple. And this makes the sister make fun of her, saying she's stupid, because what on earth would she do with such objects? It turns out that Masha wanted the items to do magic with them. And it turns also out that in the past she has been taught magic by some old woman for whom she did some, that she helped her in a way, and the old woman taught her magic. So Masha, finally the father gets the items, which were not easy to find, but he brings them. So Masha rolls the apple on the saucer. She says magical words, and in the saucer she is shown the world, where to look for berries in the forest, where flowers bloom, etc. So it's a kind of a device for divination, we could say. And the sisters get jealous and they lure Masha for a walk into the woods, where they kill her for the magical items. So they kill her and take the saucer and the apple away. They bury her body under a birch tree and tell their parents that the wolves ate their sister. And meanwhile, so Masha is buried, and then a reed grows out of her grave. And then a shepherd who walked by, he cuts the reed to make a flute or a pipe for himself. Then he plays it, and when he plays it, the flute speaks about the murder. So he's shocked, he goes to the village, tells everyone about it, and the flute instructs them where to look for the body. And they find Masha buried under the birch tree. And they dig her out, and she looks more beautiful than before, even though she's dead. And then the flute asks in Masha's place for living water from a well that the king or the Tsar owns. And they bring it, and Masha gets revived by the Tsar, and then with tears in her eyes she begs him for forgiveness for her sisters who murdered her, and her wish is granted. And then the Tsar sees how awesome she is, and he marries her. It's like, happy ending there. So what we see here, I could talk about it for days, really, but I will try and stick to my topic. as well as I can. So the first thing about the fire, where is that card? Oh, I lost it. But about the man. Oh yeah, it's here. So about the fire, I think it's very logical that a person who is about to become an adult woman, so this is coming of age rituals, in my opinion, what I'm talking about today, that she will bring fire, because women were the ones who stayed at home the most, and they would tend to the fire. It was their like sacred duty to take care of the fire. We know about the priestesses of Vesta, but in general, women were the guardians of the hearth and the fire in it. So it's a logical task for a young girl who is about to come of age to have to acquire fire and master it in a way. Okay, if you remember, she wasn't hurt by the fire when it started burning. When she brought it home, she was not hurt by the fire. And then common tasks for the heroine include housework and female crafts. So it's being repeated over and over again in many, many tales, that they have to clean, to cook, and spin or weave, or both. So these were like typical things that women would do, and you had to know how to do it when you entered the group of adult women. So you had to prove yourself. And what they see in the male story, if you remember the Iron Wolf tale, there was a thing about killing a wolf. So it is, you see, it is a male task, proving you can be a hunter, you can hunt. Okay, and the woman had to show that she can take care of the house, that it will be, that she can be responsible for it all and do things and be hardworking and everything. So often the heroine is assisted by animals, or in Vasilissa's case, it's the doll. And it is very similar to the hero's journey. They usually meet some animals on their way, which they don't kill or save even, and then the grateful animals give them some advice. In a women's case, it's also, for example, with a little mouse, the girl would feed the mouse, and the mouse would share some knowledge with her or warn her against danger, stuff like that. So it's a very common theme in both male and female stories. Then we have the two older sisters who call the youngest stupid. And I think I talked about it in the previous video, that also in some stories it's always the youngest who is called stupid. So it's the same here. So she is stupid because she is not initiated yet. She doesn't know what she should know. And the older sisters, they are already initiated. They are there to, they are there to initiate her. So she doesn't know she's the stupid one, and after she's initiated, she will become wise, like them. Then the sisters murder the youngest one in the woods so that she can be reborn. And see how Baba Yaga there, she constantly threatens Vasylissa that she'll kill her and eat her. So we have this, in most tales, there are some elements that got edited out or dropped out. I'm not sure about it, of course, but we could theorize that actually Baba Yaga does eat Vasylisa, okay? Meaning that she's getting reborn. And then... Oh, also what I wanted to say, in Polish folk tales, and if you can read Polish, I will link, if I remember to do that, I will link a page that is fabulous, simply. It's all about themes and tropes in Polish fairy tales. And there is a trope called raspberries, and it's about rivalry between sisters. And for raspberries or flowers, and sometimes like the reason for rivalry is a man. They are competing for his hand, and the one who gathers the most beautiful flowers or the greatest amount of berries or whatever is granted the hand of the man. But in some of them, there is no man at all. They are just competing between themselves. And again, Polish viewers, if you remember the Balladyna by Juliusz Słowacki, we have this theme there. It's taken exactly from Polish fairy tales. It's even also about the raspberries, and the one sister kills the other. So yeah, there are also variants like sisters and a stepmother, or the oldest sister wanting to kill the youngest, while the middle one tries to protect her. And if you remember the Iron Wolf tale, the girl there gets buried in the ground, so that only like her head and arms stick out. And it might be a version of being killed and buried in the ground, like Masha is buried, to be reborn, right? Then the reed or a willow tree or something else, a plant, grows out of the grave, and an instrument is made out of it. So it can be a pipe, a flute, or in later versions even a violin. And then the instrument tells a story. In many versions, the sister who murdered the girl breaks the instrument that tells the truth about the murder. And from it, it breaks, and from it a bird flows out, and it's the girl's soul. So again, we have this old theme of the soul having a shape of the bird. It's in Slavic tradition is very, very common, but also in other cultures as well. And also we know stories about plants growing out of people's graves and doing stuff like hugging each other, like Tristan and Isolde, right? Okay, anyway. And then the girl comes out of the grave even more beautiful than before. And it's similar to tales of regaining youth by being boiled in a cauldron. There are many Slavic fairy tales like that, but also we see it in Greek, like Medea. I believe she returned youth to Jason's father. I might be wrong, but she basically put him into the cauldron and he got reborn like that. So the cauldron, or the ground, the oven, this is the womb, the place of rebirth. So I can totally see Baba Yaga putting Vasylisa into the oven to make her anew. And that's why I might be wrong, but for me Hansel and Gretel has been heavily changed, and possibly they should have being put into the oven and eaten, not the evil witch. But that's just my thing. Don't take it too seriously. That's just my thing. All right, and then the girl can be in some other versions. There are other tales where she's drowned, and they need to take a net and like fish her out of the river because she cannot come out herself. And just recently I read fantastic stories about blacksmith in Slavic culture, and they would actually, it appears over and over again that the blacksmith takes his fur coat, like sheep skin coat, I don't know what you call it, kożuch. He takes this kożuch and he fishes out the souls from hell. But that's just a digression. But anyway, yeah, her soul is in the river. The river is similar to the ground because it's the place of otherworldly, the waters in which also the child is floating, right? So that's that. And the test of fire, we see similar tropes in other stories. Like, you need to prove your worth, basically. For example, when I was reading the stories about blacksmiths again, in Iranian tradition, there was this thing that you had to prove that they would put a drop of melted metal on your skin, and you had to endure it to show that you're the master of metal, right? And we also find this trope, and it is more often on men, I would say, because we find this trope in stories in which the heroine has to take her husband back, like retrieve him. There's this type of about wedding rites, and she burns him accidentally. She burns him with oil lamp. That's in the Amor and Psyche story, and this happens before he is taken away from her. And in the story of Mariuszka and Finist, she actually burns him on his like naked skin with her tears, and he wakes up, and so that's how she takes him back. So as you can see, these pieces of the stories, these elements, they get, moved around sometimes, but they are there. People knew that there was something about it, so we leave it in the story. But yeah, so it seems that it was more common for men to have such trials of endurance, but we get it also with Vasylisa. So yeah, maybe it was also performed. So now I'll just try to like imagine how a ritual could look like. And this is, as I said, I might be wrong, I might get things wrong, but this is my go at the interpretation from what I've read in various tales and putting it together. So yeah, first thing, you get kicked out of the house to wander in the woods and possibly communicate with spirits of the animals. So these would be the assisting animals I mentioned, and the ancestors, that would be the doll. And in many tales there's an episode of being chased by the devil or by I had it, it's awesome. Actually, there is one in which the girl is being chased by so-called goose swans. And now, of course, I cannot find it. Oh, man. So they are goose swans sent... Oh, maybe it's here. no, sent by Baba Yaga herself. So she's chasing the girl, and the girl has to run away and hide and do various stuff, including, as I said, hiding. But we have a lot of fairy tales in which a hero or a heroine has to run away and, for example, turn into something, or, oh, it's here. Here she's with a brother. There are some stories in which the girl is accompanied by a little brother. So you're turning into something magically, or you're throwing objects behind you, and it's common in like all over the world. We have it also in Japanese mythology as well, where God Izanami is being chased by his wife in hell, and he's throwing a comb behind him and other objects in turn, and they stop her for a while. But yeah, so I think I would actually, so there are some stories in which the chase is the topic of the story, and then the heroine or the hero, they run away and they are safe and everything is good. But if I were to reconstruct the ritual, I would think that it's at the beginning, when you are kicked out of the house and you have to run away and they chase you. So, you know, people dressed up as demons or dressed up as swans, they chase you and you have to run away. And remember, I will be mentioning also Snow White, simply because it's a great female initiation story, plus everybody knows it, right? The Disney version, at least. And it has some great scenes there. So she also has to run away, and those trees are trying to stop her. Very terrifying scene. And as I mentioned, the shape-shifting is often involved there. So you need to, as I said, you need to make friends with the animals, so the animal spirits, and maybe acquire kind of shape-shifting abilities, something like that. Yeah, you're supposed to come back home with fire or some kind of magical ritual objects. You probably learn divination from a female elder. The saucer and some, we could see in the story of Masha, it's a saucer or some kind of orb. In some other tale, it's a silver saucer and a golden egg. So something to roll on the plate, on a saucer. I suspect that apples are actually needed in later part. They appear everywhere because they are such a powerful symbol. But there are tales in, well, usually the holy apple tree is related to the living water, and there are some stories in which the hero has to it's his quest to get the apples and the living water. Yeah, here, see, he also had to go to Baba Yaga's hut, so it's like a place of initiation, and he has to get these apples. So I think that the apple actually fits later in the story, and I will talk about it. I also see it like the egg is at the beginning. Even the Romans had this saying, ab ovo usque ad mala, which means starting from the egg and finishing with the apple. It was explained to me on my Latin class that it was how they ate, that they started with eggs, that like the feast would start with eggs and it would end with fruit dessert. But you can also look at it metaphorically, I think, because from the egg everything starts, right? And the apple is the fruit. It's at the end of the cycle. So yeah, where was I? So yeah, you would learn a kind of divination. I don't know how it would exactly look like, but obviously you had some objects with which you could do divination. In some instances, there are, for example, 5 metal sticks that you have to find in the oven or the hearth. And so you need to get something in this hut from the elderly woman who teaches you. So it's the Baba Yaga, of course. But in the ritual, it was a kind of like elder woman who was like the boss of your initiation. And then you also had to serve the woman, clean her house in the woods. And as I mentioned before, the woods are the metaphor for the other world, the unknown. So to prove your abilities. But it also has cleaning has also a mystical meaning in a way, because you're bringing order to chaos, right? And again, remember Snow White, how she's cleaning the dirty house of the dwarves. And see, they don't come until she's done. It's not like they enter when she's in the middle of it. No, she cleans everything, everything's perfect, and then they come. Like they were waiting for her to finish. Sleeping Beauty, as I also mentioned in the previous video, also had to spend some time in the hut in the woods. It said that she's hiding from the 13th witch. But yeah, it's there. She has to be initiated, to come of age. She has to go into the woods, into the secret hut. Okay. But Snow White's example is particularly interesting because she also seems to understand the language of animals. You remember all those scenes where she's singing with the birds and the squirrels and everything, and they help her in the task too. So it's typical for such a quest to get to befriend animals. Other than that, you had to prove your other accomplishments, which would make you a valuable member of the female society. So cooking, spinning, weaving, and they are all magical activities, you could say. Like if you think about a weaver or a spinner, it's so deeply related to magic and female accomplishments and everything. And then you would meet your so-called sisters, meaning other young women who were there to initiate you and who were already initiated, and they would pretend to murder you. One of them could pretend to be your defender, so you can imagine the scene where there is one, oh, I will kill you, and the other one is, no, spare her, and no, I will kill her, and then she kills her. Like pretend kill. And and then you would be buried in the ground for some time. So it could be just like in the Iron Wolf tale, where the girl is buried and only she can breathe, obviously, so her head is above the ground and she can reach for stuff. So obviously also her arms are out, but she has to be buried for a while. Because I don't see an initiation where you are really buried, because then you would die and suffocate and die. Okay, and then in the ritual an instrument would be used, and the eldest sister would break it at the end. So probably something would be played, maybe there would be some singing and dancing, who knows, and then she would break it. And then you would be allowed to go out of your hiding place or the ground where you were buried. And then they would sprinkle you with sacred water, and probably they might give you a bite of the apple. Because, as I said, the apple is the symbol of knowledge. We know this from the Old Testament. It's kind of, the thing. And Yeah, oh, Snow White, you're here again, right? Just the order of the events if is switched. But you see, the elderly woman gives her the apple. So we can see the old woman who is as I said, the boss of the initiation. I'm lacking a word. Anyway, you know what I mean. She's the boss there. She's the initiator, and she, once you went through all those trials, pretend death, then being buried, and you go out, and yeah, you get cleansed with the holy water, revived, and then finally you get to have a bite of the apple of knowledge, and then you are one of them finally. So yeah, as I said, in Snow White's story, the apple is the reason why Snow White dies, and she's in this coffin and everything. But the apple is such a positive symbol in all the traditions and tales that I would actually switch the order here, that she gets revived and then she bites the apple and then she's a grown-up. So lastly, I just wanted to mention that the tales also show what happens when you don't do stuff properly. So it's like a warning when you don't listen to the spirits, to the advice of the animals, or you're lazy, or you don't respect your elders, then you fail, you die, and you cannot be reborn. So there's often stepsister of the heroine who wants to imitate the lucky one who comes back home and is more pretty than ever and more wealthy than ever and whatnot. And then she wants to imitate her, but she doesn't want to put in the effort. And instead of being reborn, she dies. She just goes halfway, okay? So yeah, this is it. I hope you've enjoyed it. Oh yeah, this is the reason I wanted to show you this one. This is a story where the princess in the hut in the woods has to clean, and she finds in the hearth 5 metal sticks, and then it turns out they were enchanted sheep, and they carry her away from those devils there, so she can run away. So yeah, I hope you've enjoyed. If you have any questions, suggestions, your own thoughts, please share. I would be fascinated to read it. And if you've enjoyed, please give me a thumbs up, comment, everything. Yeah. Thank you for your attention, and have a lovely, lovely day. Bye.